What is up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Nerdball Fantasy Football Show. I am your humble host, dendrologist specializing in the conservation of the endangered Robert Woods, an astronaut aboard the Pitts 8 Moon Expedition, Pete Rogers, and I am joined by a fellow nerd, the lead saxophonist for Diami Brown and the Downtown Funky Crown Band, and closer friend to Aaron Rodgers than David Bakhtiari, the working girl, Jordan Smith. It's been a hot minute. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. We got football back, ready to watch. Well, not really that ready to watch the Cowboys tomorrow night, but I'll deal with it because it's NFL football.
Just one of those things where you just wade through the pain because it's football.
There are just a lot of other Sunday games that are on the slate that I'm a little bit more interested in. But yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm kind of getting myself psyched up for the NFL season to commence and all that comes with. I've already been kind of like glued to my phone, checking every little update and nervous. Austin Eckler sits on the sideline during practice today, and it's like, oh God, is Austin Eckler injured? So I'm so glad that is already in full swing, and week one hasn't even started yet. So that's a win. This is our first starts and sits show since it is the beginning of the season. We're going to peel back the old onion curtain here and just kind of walk you through what this is going to be. So Jordan and I are going to be dropping a show every Wednesday night. You can listen to it Thursday to get you ready for the coming week starts and sits. We're going to run through all of the games. We're going to talk about at least one guy in each game whom we are liking, whom we are lukewarm on, whom we are cold on, as well as do some game pick'ems because why not? Let's keep track of that and see how good we are at actually predicting how these games will play out. And then we'll wrap up the show with a little DFS. Since we broke the Nerdball budget on this wheel, I've found so many ways to use this wheel. And now here we're going to spin it, and it will tell us the constraints that we will need to use in order to draft a DFS lineup. So then Jordan and I will unite our forces to draft a DFS lineup on FanDuel on the show, and we'll submit that into one of the $4 million pools. And if we win, great. We now have $4 million to fund the show moving forward.
That's a lot of wheels to buy, just a very good amount of wheels.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. Is I think when we win the $4 million, we will then buy one of those massive wheel of fortune Vanna White sized wheels where it'll be perpetually in the background of our apartment, and we'll just spin it and it'll be life size. I think that's the best use of the $4 million when we win it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we're not going to donate it for a good cause or spend it on ourselves. We're going to use it on the show so we can flip that $4 million into more money. And to do that, we need more wheels. So
exactly. I've always heard that the only way you can make money is by spending money. And so if we spend $4 million, just think how much money we could make, Jordan. It's a lot of money. It's so much money. All right, let's get into week one and start off with Thursday night football. Dallas Cowboys heading to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. And my play for this game is you have to be starting Antonio Brown. Obviously, if you drafted Mike Evans, if you invested in Chris Godwin, those guys, you're going to play them. But this Buccaneers passing game is going up against a Cowboys secondary that gave up the most wide receiver touchdowns and the fifth most yards to wide receivers last year, and really didn't do much to address it too much in the offseason and through the draft. Antonio Brown, though, I'm specifically singling out because Chris Godwin, he is fine. He is good to go, but he did crop up on the injury list with a quad injury. And so if that hampers him at all, that only boosts Antonio Brown's value. And also we know last year that when Antonio Brown is on the field, Tom Brady wants to get him the football. It's why Devontae Adams was the only wide receiver last year who had more receptions per snap on a per snap basis than Antonio Brown. I have him ranked as my wide receiver 21 this week in half point PPR. I am all in. He is a wide receiver 2 locked and loaded. So if you have Antonio Brown, you fire up Antonio Brown and you fire up all the people in this Buccaneers passing game because this Cowboys defense didn't really get better. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I like Antonio Brown because Tom Brady just likes Antonio Brown.
Tom Brady loves him. I don't know. I'm curious as to where this like fascination came from. Like, is it do they have similar interests? Do they both love? I don't know. What's something that they would even like remotely enjoy together? Music?
Working out like absolute maniacs. Like that's all I see them do, other than like some other really poor extracurriculars from Antonio Brown. But if you're still believing like the absolute king of bullshit, Bruce Arians, he said that Antonio Brown is back to his Pittsburgh days.
Pittsburgh days, baby. No one bullshits quite like Bruce Arians.
You love to see it. And don't take your fantasy football like knowledge or advice from watching Hard Knocks, but last week, watching Trayvon Diggs get absolutely dusted by Amari Cooper was not great for the hopes of the Dallas secondary or defense overall. It wasn't very bad because Trayvon Diggs was very confident and he was very shut down.
Very
amazing.
Erased. Do you have any worries about Dak Prescott in this game, given the fact that Zach Martin, who's on the COVID list, won't start for the Cowboys? They're going up against the Buccaneers front seven, which is great. And Dak Prescott hasn't thrown a football in real life action since October and is returning from that ankle injury. I wrote a weekly starts and sits article over at nerdballff.com, which is my roasts and ghosts. And I had Dak Prescott as a potential ghost this week. Just and then I kind of feel like, you're drafted him, he as a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and I think he will certainly be that this year, but I'm not entirely sure that this week he's going to return that value.
One of my friends said today that he's already gotten the you should trade me Dak Prescott because you don't know if he's going to get back into like his form. And this guy who offered him that was like trying to get Dak at a discount. And I think next week is the week that you truly go in and get that discount on Dak Prescott and try to buy low on him, because I think you're right with Zach Martin out. The Cowboys offensive line used to be like absolutely elite 2 years ago, but like a rash of injuries and just not being able to keep players has kind of deteriorated that line. And Dak Prescott with that like throwing injury, I don't know how serious that is, so that's like,
there's that shoulder thing.
That's confusing for me.
Some more fantasy advice coming from Hard Knocks.
And you know what, if it's any team that's absolutely going to come out in week 1 and ready to roll, it's probably going to be Tampa Bay, because they have skill players, they have the defense, they're bringing basically everybody back, everybody's ready to roll, they've got a year under their belts all with each other. And Dallas, I feel like they're still trying to figure some things out. So I am worried about Dak Prescott, at least in week 1.
Yeah. All right, let's pick the game. Who do you have? I have the Buccaneers winning this without too much of a close contest.
Yeah, I have the Buccaneers like 35-15.
Oh my gosh. Jordan coming with scores. I am not that prepared, but I can just tell you the Buccaneers.
That's just a guess.
That's just a guess. Lock it in. Jordan is right. Put all your money, put your $4 million on that. All right, let's move into the Sunday games. We're starting off with the Seattle Seahawks heading to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. What's your play in this game, Jordan?
So I'm very high on Michael Pittman Jr. I think he's going to have a breakout year, but my sleeper start for this game is going to be Paris Campbell. So I think with an injury history of Paris Campbell, the week 1 might be your best week to start him, and he might actually be able to help you out. He played in week 1 last year, and if you're like me and a little bit more of a I need to see it on tape kind of guy, I need to watch him in the game, you saw Paris Campbell look like he was just ready to go, and he was probably on his way to a breakout year if he didn't get hurt. Because in that first week he saw 9 targets and he made 6 catches for 71 yards. He also added a rush for 9 yards, so they used him in some interesting ways. And then with T.Y. Hilton on IR, the possession receiver that is Paris Campbell has a chance to make some plays out of the slot. Even if the QB situation is a little bit murky, I'm not sure. Is Carson Wentz going to play? Is he said
they've had said I think he's good to go. I think he has gotten the green light, and he will be starting against the Seahawks. But even that, I mean, the dude is coming back from foot surgery early in August, and also on the COVID list late in August. So like, I think you could still describe the quarterback situation in Indy as murky.
Yeah, so I'm kind of anticipating Paris Campbell being more of a security blanket than Michael Pittman, who might be more of a get him into open space, let's go for big plays with Michael Pittman kind of player. And do you trust Carson Wentz to make those throws on those big plays? Who's to say? Just get it to Paris Campbell going across the middle and the intermediate routes, and let him work. I would be comfortable flexing Paris Campbell for week 1.
Yeah, you make a great point. I mean, anytime any player who has a history of getting injured, you have to start them week 1, because when else are you going to start them? And Paris Campbell, like you said, like flashed a lot last year in that one game, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is it! Like we're finally going to have the Paris Campbell emergence," and it didn't happen. And I think you're making a great point with the Seattle Seahawks, where that secondary again wasn't great last year, and again they didn't do much to like noticeably improve it. They re-signed Jamal Adams, but Jamal Adams is basically a pass rusher and not an actual secondary member when in Seattle. So I think you definitely can fire up this Colts passing game and these Colts passing weapons. You have Paris Campbell as your sleeper. I like Michael Pittman Jr. as a sleeper too. I think both of those guys can offer sneaky fantasy value this week in a game that, the Seahawks are going to put numbers up, and if the Colts want to win it, they're going to have to kind of match those. I know the Colts defense is really good, but I think the Colts defense is going to shut down Chris Carson in the running game, not so much Russell Wilson in the passing game.
Yeah, I agree. I like Campbell and Michael Pittman. I think this game has a little bit of a shootout potential. I think there could be some high scoring affair going on here, especially with Indianapolis being in the dome. My pick for this game is going to be Seattle, though, because I was looking at Indianapolis's depth chart earlier, and they have like legitimately 10 guys out of their 53 like on the IR. That's not great.
No, I'm going Seattle as well. That being said, Seattle is like that team that perpetually starts like the first 6 weeks of the season terribly and then somehow turns it around and ultimately wins the NFC West. So would it surprise me if the Colts came out with a win? No. I think I'd feel a lot more confident in the Colts if Carson Wentz didn't miss basically the majority of the offseason and the preseason. If Carson Wentz actually was working with them and like building chemistry with these receivers and like learning this offense and being able to implement it on the field, I would have more confidence in like the Colts maybe playing upset at home. But I think it's week 1. I'm sorry if our picks are bland so far, but like you kind of have to go with the team who is just on paper better, because we don't really know too much about these teams. Speaking of two teams that on paper are just the pinnacle of football, Jacksonville Jaguars heading to Houston to take on the Texans. Oh my goodness, this game is going to be a bloodbath. My must start, you have to start Laviska Shenault this year. I feel like I'm just going to like repeat what I said about the Buccaneers and Cowboys here with the Jaguars in Houston. Both myself and Patty Cooper on Nerdball have put a lot of stock in Trevor Lawrence in week 1, having a big performance, just because this Houston secondary is terrible. They got torched last year. They got torched during the preseason. They just traded Bradley Roby, one of their top corners, to the Saints. Like the tank is on in Houston and they are fully committed. And so I think that Trevor Lawrence, I know he's not my play, but like 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns seems wildly within the realm of reason for him. So he's a great DFS play in my opinion. And with Shenault kind of emerging as the Jaguars wide receiver 1, it seems, then I'll put my money there. I'll take the bet on him. And we can still see how this situation plays out. Like I love Marvin Jones as a sleeper, but I'll invest all the chips in Laviska Shenault for week 1. I have him as my wide receiver 32. Put him in and ride.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about Laviska Shenault because I don't know what it's hard to tell what Urban Meyer is doing or thinking down there.
No one knows.
It seemed like they were, for whatever reason, really disappointed they didn't get Kadarius Toney, who's, obviously Tony's a Florida Gator where Urban Meyer used to be. But it seemed like they wanted Tony to come in and take
Laviska Shenault. Right.
Well, yeah, which didn't make sense because I don't think Kadarius Toney is a very good player. But yeah, I like Shenault kind of in the same way that I like Paris Campbell. Like, I think that he could be a little bit of a gadget guy who's can be like a security blanket for Trevor Lawrence when, I mean, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to be under all that much duress. I saw, I want to make sure I give due credit. Mike Renner from PFF tweeted today that the Texans have the worst roster in the NFL on paper, yet they don't have a single rookie in their starting lineup. That's almost difficult to do, which is incredible. You're right. Houston is going for the full-on tank. They are like, first of all, they don't have a lot of draft picks to.
No, which is just also like, what are we tanking when you have absolutely no draft capital to like actually benefit from the tank?
Yeah, and second of all, it's like, yeah, we're not even going to try to get some young guys to get them on the field to get them reps. We're
going to start our backfield of David Johnson, Philip Lindsay, Rex Burkhead, and Mark Ingram, and we're just going to ride with that. We're going to be a ground and pound team with Tyrod Taylor under center, and we are going to grind out an 0-17 record and have no first round picks to actually take advantage of that. What a great team building plan. Just perfect construction.
Look, no rookies, like oldest head coach in the NFL. They are really going for a.
I think they've seen the success that Tom Brady has had as he aged, and they're just like, what if we take that strategy and implement it across the entire roster? If we just get a bunch of old players, then perceivably they'll all play like Tom Brady and we'll win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they saw JJ Watt and they're like, you know what, Tampa Bay, we don't need pass rushers. We need age. We need to go older than JJ
Watt is too young. We need to age our entire team by at least 5 years. I feel silly asking, but who do you have for this game?
Oh, I'm picking Jacksonville because I am high on Jacksonville this year.
Ooh, saucy. I'm also picking Jacksonville. We need to really start, differentiating our picks. Otherwise, when we keep record, it's just we're going to be perpetually tied. The Jaguars, if Trevor Lawrence truly is what we have seen him to be at every level of football that he has played, and he makes the Jaguars take that next step, their receiving core is really good. James Robinson now is going to be stepping into a massive workload with Travis Etienne out for the year, who's another guy. I mean, James Robinson, you should 100% be starting. I know Nick has him ranked as his RB8 this week because Houston, again, has no defense. All right, let's move on to the Philadelphia Eagles heading to Atlanta to take on another bird in the Falcons. Jordan, what's your play?
So I'm worried about starting Jalen Reagor. I know maybe a week or two ago, there was some buzz that started to happen again because there was some clips that people released of him making like a one-hand catch in the end zone, yada, yada. But I need everybody to remember that in the weeks preceding that clip, that there was a lot of concern over Jalen Reagor just not being up to speed and not working out. And Philadelphia should be a little bit worrisome for everyone. I'm pretty high on Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to be a pretty good fantasy option. But the Eagles are just a little bit messy. And I'm just hoping that people have some other options. This is another thing about week one and why our picks aren't very saucy for who's going to win this game is that right now I feel like I'm basically going off narrative street.
Sure.
Because I don't have enough stats on this season. Last season is like a good baseline, but it's all like who's to say? You kind of got to go off of instinct and the narrative and sift through the coach bullshit to figure out what to do. And I've just never been very high on Jalen Reagor as a prospect. So
yeah, I guess if you're like in a super deep dynasty league or just a general redraft league, you're like maybe having to rely on Jalen Reagor. I feel bad for you if you do have to rely on Jalen Reagor in any stretch of the imagination, because like you said, just like it wasn't really a resounding positive reviews coming out of camp. And it feels like the Eagles passing tree is going to be Devonta Smith and Zach Ertz or Dallas Goedert, whichever tight end sticks around the longest. And so I definitely am not excited. I would by no means get near Jalen Reagor. I also am worried about Miles Sanders, kind of like what you were saying, Jordan, where it's just like, what is this Eagles offense just generally is kind of worries me. Also the Falcons run defense, sneaky good last year. They were top 6 in run defense NEF rating and allowed just 20 points per game to opposing backfields. And Miles Sanders, I feel like is the quintessential back of like shrug emoji. Like, we'll just wait and kind of see what he is. We had high expectations for him last year, and that didn't come to fruition. And I feel like everyone's coming into this year with no expectations for him, and he could meet those expectations and still be kind of nothing, or he could exceed them. And I personally, if I were a Miles Sanders, I would probably break in favor of starting him, but I'm certainly going to take week 1 to like sit back, watch, and see how he's kind of implemented in this offense.
Yeah, Atlanta was sneaky, like feisty last year. Like if you remember, I think it was the Dallas game and maybe a game against Carolina where like they had like 2 or 3 weeks in a row where just some crazy shit happened to end their games, and they're like, well, that's Atlanta. And it's like, actually, no, if the ball had bounced a different way, Atlanta might have made the playoffs. Like that's how sneaky.
And now they have Kyle Pitts, baby.
And now they have Kyle Pitts. Miles Sanders, I am like officially putting him on the hot seat. Like it might be time to break up with Miles Sanders in a couple of weeks if he doesn't do anything, because he's been like, we've been kind of waiting for him to pop for a couple of years. And I think we might be looking at more at his like raw athletic ability a little bit too much. And that might be clouding our judgment on Miles Sanders a little bit.
I like that. I like that a lot. Miles Sanders, watch out. The seat's getting toasty. Your buns are getting baked a little bit. Maybe just all you have to do is just get off the chair and show a little something. Show a little something to save your booty. I'm going with the Falcons this game. I just am too infatuated with the idea of both, mainly Kyle Pitts, but Arthur Smith's offense with all of these weapons. Can I assume that you are also we're going to go toe to toe and stay perfectly in sync so far with our picks?
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Falcons too. I think the Falcons are going to be feisty again this year, and I think they might be the best challenger to Tampa Bay in that division. Woo! So
I guess that's I was reacting like that's a really hot spicy take, but actually I have to remember that the Saints don't have Drew Brees anymore, or Michael Thomas, or a defense that might not be at the same level it was last year. So I like it. I think you are correct there. All right, let's move on out to I was going to say out to the West Coast, but it's actually the East Coast, because the Los Angeles Chargers are heading across the country to play the Washington football team. And this game, I'm sitting Logan Thomas. I've been long on this throughout the offseason that Thomas is a prime regression candidate. He was one of the least efficient tight ends last year, and from a fantasy perspective. And for the first time, you talk about players who are perpetually injured, Jordan, who are finally healthy, and you take advantage of them in week 1. Derwin James is finally on the field after not playing since 2018, his rookie season. And in that year, when he did play for the Chargers in 2018, the Chargers allowed the 7th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. It's been 2 years since we've seen Durham James step onto the field, but he is healthy, he is playing, and he is one of the best safeties in the league. And I think that he is going to, that combined with the fact that Logan Thomas's fantasy production last year was really inflated by the fact that Alex Smith just peppered him with targets. And I don't think that's going to translate with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center. I'm staying away from Logan Thomas this week.
Derwin James might be my favorite player who's not a rookie and has played the least amount of games.
He's played like 12 games. It's absurd. And yet it's like any person you talk to from a football, like who has watched and knows football, is just like Derwin James, best, like one of the 3 best safeties in the league. And he hasn't played since 2018. That's how good this guy is. He's so good, and he just needs to stay healthy.
He's great. Like he's truly a special player, but he just needs to stay healthy. I agree with you on Logan Thomas. I'm not sure why I've heard a lot of like buzz this offseason
so much
on his like fantasy output, because I haven't heard it from like a real football perspective. He had a good year last year, kind of, but like not really. And he's like 29 years old. You know, like it would be one thing if he was, I mean, he did kind of switch to the position late and it's taken him a while, but like dude's 29 years old. He's like the Taysom Hill of tight ends right now.
We know we love Taysom Hill between Jordan and I.
Yeah. Like there's not much left there for like, there's not much room for Logan Thomas to get any better. Like, I don't think he's going to broach the top, like 10 tight ends even this year.
Right. I like his story is amazing, and I'm glad that he got the bag and that, you know, Washington paid him, and good job. He's like one of those rare success stories of transitioning from a quarterback into a tight end that like pays out. Sorry, Tim Tebow, sucks to suck. But I agree with you totally, where I was like, people were so high on him going into this year in fantasy, and I was just like, I'm not seeing it. But I am seeing this Washington football team being frisky and putting the clamps on Justin Herbert. Like, I don't think that this is going to be a great week one for Justin Herbert, given how good this Washington football defense could be.
Yeah. With Curtis Samuel out, this is actually just a sneaky, it's a backdoor Diami Brown is good take. No, I feel like it's going to legitimately be the Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson show for week one.
Yeah, for sure.
If Samuel doesn't play.
All right, let's pick it. Who do you got?
You go first.
I kind of want to be spicy and say Washington. And I'll say it. I'll be spicy. I think Washington, Fitzmagic in his first game as like the starter, the whole, like no questions asked. He's playing with Terry McLaurin, playing with Antonio Gibson. I think that Antonio Gibson, everyone is super high on him taking a big step this year, and I'm buying into that. I think that they have plans for him. Obviously, Ron Rivera knows how to use a dual running back threat successfully. And this, I just really believe in this Washington defense, and I think that they could cause some trouble for Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense.
See, I thought you had talked yourself into Washington, so I thought you were going to pick them the entire time. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Chargers. This is like the first time I've truly wished that I was back in the DC market so I could watch this full game, because this might be like my most exciting game.
It's going to be
week.
Good.
Like, I think it's going to be a pretty solid game, so I wish I could watch it.
I totally agree with that. I think that this is there are games that like have potential, like the next game we're going to talk about, I think has potential to be a really good one, but watching Justin Herbert go up against Ryan Fitzpatrick and just like chuck bombs all over the field, here for it. All right. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying I'll catch Keenan Allen with his 3 tutties on red zone. So
yeah,
that'll be fine.
Keenan Allen on his way to the wide receiver 1 this year. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Buffalo to take on the Bills. This game could be good. I think that this might have another shootout potential vibe to it. Jordan, what do you like or not like?
Yeah, this is a kind of a classic lunch pail type of game, because it's Steelers in Buffalo. You got like blue collar cities, and people in Buffalo are going to be jumping onto tables and burning shit, and Pittsburgh crowd travels very well. So it's probably going to be it's
going to be the best atmosphere of week one.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I think we're both pretty low on the Bills backfield.
Yes.
Not just in week one, but maybe for the first couple of weeks until we actually see how it starts to play out. I wrote that Zack Moss is probably your best option if you need to play one of them, just because I don't know, he's young still and he's kind of developing, and he was hurt a little bit, so that kind of slowed him down. But I think that he could possibly usurp Devin Singletary, who's a little bit more just, he's kind of been relegated to pass catcher. I think that Pittsburgh's defense though could round back into shape, and we've kind of been on this for a while too, is that if you have a running back with a rushing QB, that can tend to hurt their stock, especially a guy like Zack Moss is kind of considered a between the tackles dude. that will get you some goal line scores. Josh Allen is likely to snag a couple rushing touchdowns within the red zone this season, and that might start right away in week 1 because they've got to keep Pittsburgh on their toes. And I would just wait if you can. I would just wait until one of these guys truly steps up and takes that position by the reins.
Yes, I 100% endorse the patience in the Bills backfield. I also this is a backfield where I'm just like, I will happily be late to it to wait for it to come to clarity. Like I'm not going to be early on this. If it costs me extra fab to like get Zack Moss or if I have to trade whatever it might be to like get a part of this Bills backfield, I'm happy to pay the higher price because I waited on it because I just have absolutely no idea. I also don't really know how productive this backfield is ultimately going to be too. Like you were saying, like there's a touchdown cap with Josh Allen there. Josh Allen, like there as a passing game is so prevalent that like I don't know how much work there is really in this backfield to like reliably make Zack Moss a guy who I'm going to want to invest in because he's always going to be a flex or better start in fantasy. And I'm not sold on that. Quickly going back to LAC Washington, we have confirmation from Adam Schefter that Austin Eckler did not practice due to a hamstring injury. So something to take note of and something that is crippling many of my fantasy teams this year because I invested heavily in Austin Eckler because Austin Eckler is a top 5 fantasy back this year. Lock it, load it, repeat it until it becomes true. Pitt and Buffalo. On Pitt's side, yeah, you fire up your guys. I like Deontay Johnson. Of the most of those 3 receivers. Pick the game.
I'm gonna go with Buffalo.
Okay. I think you're right, but this is why like doing work ahead of time often makes for better podcasting because I could have an answer just like to respond to you as opposed to delaying my ultimate pick by me just like rambling. I think you are right in that Buffalo could win this game. I also could see Buffalo coming out a little flat after a big season last year and Pittsburgh coming for blood the way that their season last year ended. So I'm going to take Pitt. I talked myself into it. We were tied on picks and now we're going back to back of different opinions. So here we go. Let's move on to the San Francisco 49ers heading to Detroit to take on the Lions. Oh my goodness gracious. There is so much I would love to talk about in this game. First of all, fire up the entire 49ers backfield because the Detroit Lions run defense is hot garbage and we absolutely cannot get enough of Kyle Shanahan's ground game. But I'm actually going to talk about a Detroit Lion this week as my sleeper start, and that's Tyrell Williams. Goff has to throw the ball to someone other than TJ Hawkinson. Maybe I'm crazy in saying that, but I think that has to be true. And Williams feels like kind of a forgotten commodity because he's a good wide receiver. He's had back-to-back years with 600 plus yards receiving and at least 5 touchdowns. And while San Francisco's front 7 is like off the charts legit, their secondary can be taken advantage of and be exploited. I have Williams like nothing crazy. I have him as my wide receiver 51. But I think he's a guy who is wildly available in leagues. I think he's like under 30% rostered in sleeper leagues. So you can stream him this week if you wanted to. And I think he could be a guy who finishes like 50 yards, maybe a touch. And that is good enough to put you into like flex consideration.
Yeah, I think the San Francisco defense can be taken advantage of in the secondary. And I also think that we're not going to know what it looks like without Robert Saleh right now. Like they could have very well just, kept things the same and kept things working. But I think Robert Saleh was a coach that the players really believed in. Like he was a player's coach and they played very hard for him. So who's to say what's going to happen with that? I've talked myself into Tyrell Williams a little bit. I've invested in, like, I've used some fab to pick him up off the waiver wire. I've got some stock there. So I think if you're in like a dynasty league that has multiple flex positions, you might be okay with playing him, because I think Detroit's a pretty good 0-16 candidate or 0-17 candidate. So they are probably going to be behind a lot, and they're probably going to have to throw the ball around a lot. And I think that outside of Hawkinson, Tyro Williams, like, why not? We've seen like deep threat wide receivers go off in like the first week of the NFL season because it's not that hard for them to run fast past people. So
that's a good point. That's a good point. Tyrell Williams does have like the Deshaun Jackson vibe about him, where it's like he goes for, 100+ yards and a touch on a long 50-yard catch, and you're like, sure, yeah, I buy that. And now suddenly he's a top 24 wide receiver this week.
Plus he was toiling away on the Raiders, who don't know how to throw deep anyway, so it's like, who knows how good he actually could be. Like,
he could be the best deep threat wide receiver in the NFL, and we wouldn't even know, because he spent a year on the Raiders just doing short intermediate routes.
He's just running back and forth to the pylon from the huddle. Like, that's all he was doing.
That's all he was doing. And now he's elite at it. I would assume that we're getting back in touch here and both picking the 49ers to win this game.
Yeah, I'm the 49ers.
Yeah. Okay. 49ers win this game handedly. All right, let's move on. Minnesota Vikings heading to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Jordan, what do you like in this game?
I'm going to sit Ja'Marr Chase. That's not saying anything about his talent, because I think he is a talented prospect, but this is going to be a wait and see for me type of situation. He is a rookie wide receiver on Bengals team that I think is actually going to be pretty bad. I know people are really excited about Joe Burrow having his LSU weapon back, and he's got all these other guys there, and they're going to chuck the ball all over the place. But we don't know if, first of all, we don't know if Zach Taylor's good. The reports,
despite the fact that Zach Taylor's been the Bengals head coach for the last 30 years, we have no idea whether or not he's actually a good head coach.
And given the Bengals track record, they'll let him keep his job for way longer. Than
he's gonna be on the Bengals for the next 50 years, and we'll, at the end, it'll be 80, and we'll still be like, is Zach Taylor a good head coach? Jury's out. This is the year for him to prove it.
Who's to say? And then I think that T. Higgins is going to be the guy here if you're going to start any Bengals wide receiver. And I have to mention too. I try not to take too much stock in camp reports until I like to verify some things myself, because beat reporters think that, their reports are that every team is playing really well in training camp and practicing really well, and every player looks like they're about to have a breakout season. But when you get some negative reports, that's something you should take note of. And the negative reporting around the Bengals not being able to get their offense clicking until very late in the training camp process, or Ja'Marr Chase not being able to separate, is a little worrisome, because the Bengals defense is not great. He should be working these number twos on defense, and they're number ones, but it's a little alarming to not hear that he's just absolutely dunking on people in camp.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting to see what Ja'Marr Chase can do before I'm like, yes, plug him in as my flex or wide receiver too. Nah, he's got to earn it.
Yeah, that's fair. Ja'Marr Chase seems like the perfect buy low guy that you're going to trade for in week 5 from a very disgruntled manager who was like, I thought Ja'Marr Chase was going to go with the next Justin Jefferson. It was going to go for 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. And you trade some garbage for Ja'Marr Chase. And then he ultimately does that. As a lot of smarter football minds on the interwebs have said, you don't forget how to catch. And I think that a lot of it is just kind of nerves and getting acclimated into, and he sat out all of last season. He's even openly admitted this. He has said that he is getting back into football shape and getting back into playing football and learning how to read an NFL football as opposed to a college football, because it has different stripes and all of that jazz. So I think Ja'Marr Chase is, I like this play. I think you're right, Jordan, and that he's probably not going to have a really great week 1. But I also think that if you're a Ja'Marr Chase manager, be patient with him if you can. And like, even if come week 5, he really hasn't done anything for you, like keep him around. Don't buy on a buy low offer. And I think he will eventually come into his own at the back half of the season and, ultimately live up to the wide receiver 20, mid 20s that you drafted him as. I also like Joe Mixon in this game. I wanted to quickly shout that out, even though I feel like there's been lots of, it's coming from me, lots of negativity about Joe Mixon, because Joe Mixon feels like Miles Sanders to me, where it's like prove it or lose it. The Vikings allowed the 6th most fantasy points to running backs last year, and Mixon is set for like an easy 25 touches a game with Gio down in Tampa Bay now. And show it to me, Joe Mixon. This is a matchup you should exploit. You're about to get the workload you need to do it. So to me, he is a roast. He's a must start this week. And if he then ultimately lets us all down, well, then we've all gone down together and we're sitting at the bottom of the ocean playing the sweet music of whatever sunk the Titanic. Who you got winning this game, Jordan?
Jeez. I feel like I need like a tentative, I need to officially hear the injury report before the game, and I need to see how many Vikings are on the COVID list. But
half the roster.
Yeah, I'll pick them anyway. I think that they should just go into Cincinnati and take care of business.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the Vikings as well. I think that, like you said, where we're surprised that Jamar Chase isn't dunking on the Bengals secondary. Well, the Vikings have 2 good wide receivers, one in Adam Thielen and a great one in Justin Jefferson. So I have hard pressed to think that they are not going to be able to take advantage of a spotty Bengal secondary. New York Jets heading to Carolina to take on the Panthers in a revenge game. Sam Darnold. If only, I love the narrative that this is in week 1, but I kind of wish that it was a little bit later in the season so we could really kind of drum it up more and have these 2 teams, it just would be a juicier narrative if Sam Darnold had the Panthers offense kind of thriving and jiving. And it was like they were 4-0 and then they were heading to New York to take on the Jets, who were 4-0 under Zach Wilson. And it's like, oh, the battle of Adam Gase, even though he's not there anymore. So little underwhelmed, NFL, that you have planned this for week 1. My play for this game is ignore the entire Jets backfield. The Panthers were average against the run last year per Neff and allowed 4.7 yards per carry. So it could be a great matchup. Like this on paper has the potential. The Panthers were fine, but they gave up a good amount of yards. Mainly, I am just staying away from this, similarly to what you were saying about the what were we talking about Buffalo's backfield, where it's just I don't know who the guy is. If you know who the guy is, go ahead and play them. It could be Ty Johnson. It could be Michael Carter or Tevin Coleman. But I guess for me, it's why risk it so early? There are other running backs or other flex plays that you have much more certainty in, that they're the ones who are going to be seeing the bulk of work. I'm going to say, wait, see how the backfield shapes out after week 1, and then move on from there.
Yeah, the new coaching staff in New York is directly clipped from the Shanahan branch. And this is going to be a situation where they could use all 3 backs. They could decide on 1. They could decide on 2. It's very curious. And the same thing has been true of San Francisco for the past couple of seasons, is that we don't truly know who's going to be the guy until the season gets rolling. And then we're like, oh, okay, it's going to be this.
And
guy.
often it's that decision ultimately comes down to which running back doesn't get injured. So it's also it kind of comes down to that. But you're totally right, where it's let's wait and see what happens, because this running game could be super very lucrative in the fantasy world. I have drafted Michael Carter in a couple of my leagues. And I'm very happy. I have him in a bunch of best ball rosters. I'm very happy with him. And I think he's going to be of a really strong rookie year. But just week 1, we've heard a lot about Ty Johnson. We haven't heard a lot about Michael Carter. I know we heard some about Tevin Coleman. It just seems like it's a very murky situation that I'm not going to make a choice on this early in the season.
Yeah. And don't be alarmed, people. No matter who is the running back here, if you see a giant mountain pulling and moving in front of one of these backs, it's just Mekhi Becton lumbering down the field like an animal, because he's probably going to be there like step for step with these running backs, because he's a freak.
He's going to absolutely just like eviscerate. Is Shaq Thompson still on the team? Like, whatever, the Panthers linebacker is just about to get absolutely blown up as Mekhi Becton pulls and just plows a pathway. Like, this is the thing. It's like, God, whatever back gets the Jets starting gig, whoo, Lord have mercy. That is a fantasy gold mine. Pick this game. It pains me to say it because I'm a Patriots fan, but I saw enough out of Zach Wilson that I'm kind of saucy. I'm kind of on them. I like this offense, and I'm going to trust the Kyle Shanahan branch growing and blossoming in New York. I'm going to go with the Jets, shut down Sam Darnold and prevent him from getting his sweet, sweet revenge on an Adam Gase-less team.
Well, I'm going to go with Carolina. I think their defense is going to be better this year. I liked that they threw a ton of resources at it in the 2020 draft. So I'm hoping that some of those picks start to pan out for them, and we get a solid Carolina team. I really want Sam Darnold to be good. Like, do it for Rosen. Please, Sam, do it for Rosen.
Please. Also, JC Horn looked incredible during the preseason, which is dampened some of my Corey Davis hype for week one.
Over under 2 holding penalties on JC Horn. I'm going over.
Hit the over. There's some betting advice for you guys. All right, let's wrap up the morning games with the Arizona Cardinals heading to Tennessee. What do you like in this, Jordan? Or don't like?
I feel like I'm being very negative in this podcast, but that's
okay. It's week one. Like, it's so boring to just be like, you should start. Well, I'm literally having my notes start AJ Brown. Like, you're not going to do that, but like in week one, who knows what? So it's okay to be negative, Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sitting Chase Edmonds. I think Edmonds has had his chance to be the lead guy in Arizona before, but he's always ended up, no matter who it is, whether it's David Johnson or Kenyon Drake, he's always ended up splitting carries, and that's like kind of worrisome. I believe a couple seasons ago, he ended the year on like a spree, like for the last month, because like David Johnson was hurt or something, and he was scoring a bunch of points, and at Cliff Kingsbury is like, oh, Chase Edmonds could be our lead guy. And guess what? They traded for Kenyon Drake not there long after. And now they added James Conner. So I don't truly think they believe that Chase Edmonds can be the guy. He is just a guy on the Cardinals team. I like Arizona spending a lot of resources on improving that O-line, even adding Hudson. I think that was one of the best moves of the offseason. But I think that also just means that James Conner could return somewhat to his Pittsburgh form, which before that offense and that line started to deteriorate, James Conner was a perfectly fine fantasy option, whether that's like a flex or an RB2. And I think that Kingsbury could very well be like maybe trying to save his job this season. And
I think Kingsbury certainly is on the hot seat this season.
Yeah, so I think with that in mind, he could end up riding the hot hand at multiple positions, not just running back. And that, for me, it's a little worrisome to have Chase Edmonds and gamble on it being him, when it very well can just end up being James Conner, and the Cardinals are probably not losing anything if it's one or the other.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right with Chase Edmonds. Like you said it, where we've seen like he had the opportunity. He didn't get he didn't secure the opportunity. They brought in James Conner, and James Conner, I think the reason why James Conner regressed in Pittsburgh was partially due to their offensive line play, but also partially just because, I mean, he survived cancer. Like, he went through chemotherapy, and I don't think his body can handle a 300 touch workload that the Steelers like to give their running backs. So I think in a committee, I wouldn't be surprised if James Conner suddenly shows a lot more life and energy like what we saw early in his Pittsburgh career. And so him sharing a backfield with someone like Chase Edmonds, I think that I'm not going to be surprised when James Conner ultimately is the most productive back in this backfield. And so I think that, Chase Edmonds is certainly a guy who I'm not going to confidently start this week. And I honestly didn't draft anywhere because of this. So I don't have to worry about it. If you drafted him, people out there listening to the show, then you're just going to have to face the music of James Conner, which would probably be a pretty good theme song. I feel like that would be John Cena-esque music.
James Conner, get to the chopper, Conner. Who do you have for this game? This one's a little tricky for me too. I think I'm just going to go with Arizona.
Yeah.
I feel like the chalk pick is Tennessee in this case because they made the playoffs last year and they've been good, but I'm just going to go with Arizona just to spice things up. We got to have a few upsets.
I like it. I'm going to go with Arizona too. I think I want to see, and I'm sure there's probably not too much difference, but I want to see what this Titans offense and specifically Ryan Tannehill look like without Arthur Smith, since Arthur Smith was instrumental in making Ryan Tannehill a serviceable quarterback. Also start AJ Brown everywhere. He's my wide receiver 3. Before we get into the afternoon and then evening games, I want to tell you, dear listeners, about our Patreon, patreon.com/nerdballff. We have all kinds of perks for those wishing to join, including joining our staff Discord channel to talk football during the season. We have a starts and sit hotline where you can ask us all of your most pressing start and sit questions, and also be able to submit questions to be answered live on the show. So if you want to support us, go to patreon.com/nerdballff and pick your perk. Pick what level you want to join us at. We appreciate everything and anything. All right, let's move on to the afternoon games. The Cleveland Browns heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. This game, I will say, has the vibe to me. Do you remember it was the Chiefs too, right? I think it was the Chiefs and the Rams where it was like 50-51 and it was just an absolute shootout, but there was like defensive plays all over the place where Aaron Donald had like 2 sack fumbles and all like it was just a complete nonstop roller coaster ride. This game gives me some of that vibe. I am really high on the Browns defense this year. Obviously, both the Browns offense and the Chiefs offense have firepower up to the umpteenth level. And my start this week, it's a sleeper start for this game, and that's Donovan Peoples-Jones. We've only heard good things coming out of Browns camp about Peoples-Jones. He has been a hot commodity in Cleveland. He's a big down the field receiver who can stretch the field. And like I said, I think this game is going to be really high scoring. And I think there is plenty of room for a player like Donovan Peoples-Jones to score 1, maybe 2 big long touchdowns, or certainly get 1 big long touchdown and another big long play. The Chiefs secondary gave up 11.6 yards per reception last year, which was the 7th most. And so they can be taken advantage of in that situation. And Peoples-Jones kind of showed himself with Odell being out last year that he is that downfield field stretcher, big physical receiver who can high point the ball. And I think with Odell back and having a defense have to worry about him, it only makes frees up more opportunities for Peoples-Jones to really make a big impact down the field.
Yeah, that Rams Chiefs game in Mexico City.
Was it in Mexico City?
It was in Mexico City.
God.
It was one of the best football games I'd ever watched because it wasn't just like offenses beating up on each other. There was a ton of defense.
So much. There was a pick, Marcus Peters pick 6. I'm almost certain. Like it was one of, you're 100% right. It was one of the most enjoyable football games I've watched in the last like 5 years.
Yeah, it had something for everyone basically.
Yeah.
I think that again, the scheduling committee messed up a little bit. They should be having Cleveland, Kansas City for the Sunday night game and not Chicago and the Rams. Like,
well, because I guess they have to break in SoFi, isn't it? Isn't that the I think that's like the SoFi Stadium's inauguration where they shatter the champagne bottle on it and say, "Out to sea, baby."
Oh well, I don't think there. I mean, sure, fill up half of that stadium, LA, and we'll see what happens. But no, I like Donovan Peoples-Jones. He was kind of a raw prospect coming out of Michigan, but last year he had some really good plays that you just kind of want to see him string together like some complete games and really step into his own. And I think that's I've been on this for a while, and it's probably because I'm just like a defender of Odell right now, but I feel like Baker Mayfield and that offense just hungs a little bit better when you got some, like, I don't know, some guys that aren't like superstars like Odell Beckham Jr., where you're constantly worried about making sure you get him targets, because it's just a little worrisome in that regard. And I think Donovan Peoples-Jones can be a great field stretcher, and let's try to get him the ball when it matters, because the other guys on the field, like Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, those tight ends, Austin Hooper, Jarvis Landry, they're going to command a lot of attention. So I think you can sneak by some Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah, he feels like a guy who can post a stat line that gives him a solid fantasy return. Part of me wants to get really saucy and say Cleveland wins this game. If it was in Cleveland, I think I would feel confident in pulling that trigger. But I think in KC, I think I still have to go with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think this game is going to be pretty close. At some point in the night, we're going to hear, or not in the night, because it's not in prime time. Damn it. At some point during this game,
is how much the NFL messed up, is that it feels like a primetime game.
And who doesn't love a night game at Arrowhead?
Right.
I feel like at some point the announcers during this game are going to go, we're going to see these guys somewhere down the line in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. Right now, though, I'm going to pick the best QB on the field, and that's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So I'm going to take them, even though I think Cleveland's going to have a pretty good season.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Cleveland could win the AFC North. I was going to say pretty easily, but I think that's too bold. Green Bay it's not heading to New Orleans because New Orleans is currently underwater. Heading to Jacksonville to take on the Saints. And Jordan, talk about your favorite team.
Yes, the Jewel City, Jacksonville, Florida. So no home field advantage for New Orleans. Tough luck for them.
Did you see? Did you see the fact that the Saints picked the Jaguars to go play in Jacksonville because it's the most expensive? It was the most expensive option for Packers fans to fly to.
No, I didn't see that.
I saw someone tweeted that out, and I was like, that is A+ manipulation there, Sean Payton. Well done.
They're underestimating how insane the Packers fan base will be, though. I know several people that went to like the Tampa Bay game last year, whenever that was. Like they're not going to not go. Like they could have moved this game to London and there'd still be. Plus, there's also, I feel like, Becca loves to point them out anytime we are walking anywhere. She's always like, "Oh, Packers fan." I do feel like they are prevalent everywhere. Yeah, they every now and then, and don't think there's not a lot of like retirees in Florida that are just that moved down south from Wisconsin.
Good Midwesterners wanting to get away from the cold when they're old, and they're like, "We're gonna go live in Florida." I think you're onto something here. I think Sean Payton actually played himself. He overthought it.
My must start for this one it's kind of obvious because you probably drafted him in the first round, but it's going to be Aaron Jones. When I was looking at this depth chart, and again, it's the first week, so you can't really look on paper and be like, oh, this defense is good, or oh, this defense is bad. But when I was looking at this depth chart, I was like, how were they so good last year on defense?
The Saints defense? Yeah.
They were pretty efficient last year by DVOA, by a ton of metrics, but that depth chart is like pretty ugly, especially the middle of the defensive line. They're starting Christian Ringo, who used to play for the Packers, but definitely did not start for the Packers and hasn't played in like 2 years. And his backup is also a guy who played defensive tackle for the Packers. So it's like they're not throwing out any intimidating guys on the front, save for Cam Jordan. And I think the Packers have had some offensive line restructuring, and they will be without David Bakhtiari for a little bit. But I think that like the system in place right now has churned out some like pretty talented guys. I think that having the talent and having like Matt LaFleur at the same time it's working. It's a pretty good symbiotic relationship, and I think Aaron Jones just needs to be your week-to-week starter. Don't be afraid of AJ Dillon cutting into his workload, because I think that if Aaron Jones stays like between the 17 to 20 carry mark, he'll still have like a really efficient game. And that's what you want. You want the points. You don't necessarily want him to have like 30 carries for 115 yards, because that means he was just getting his ass beat all night long. And yeah, he got the yards, but at what cost? So Aaron Jones, and I'm just going to go with the Packers because this is it's Aaron Rodgers versus Jameis Winston. Like,
really,
that's what I'm going with.
It's Marquis Callaway versus Kevin King.
Oh, Callaway might win that one.
Callaway almost certainly will, but the thing is then it's like, actually you just put Jair Alexander on him and Callaway's not catching a single ball. I'm going with the Packers too to win this game. That seems like a pretty easy pick in my book. And Aaron Jones, it feels wrong to say this because Alvin Kamara is like likely on a whole other stratosphere of fantasy potential this year, given the fact that the Saints cut Latavius Murray and have no wide receivers. And so I think Alvin Kamara is like in line for 1,500 yards rushing and receiving. But Aaron Jones without Jamal Williams, like the sky's the limit for him now being the clear cut number one, like all workload goes through him back, especially working in the passing game. Like Jamal Williams siphoned off a good portion of the passing work in the backfield, and if all of that falls back onto Aaron Jones, then Jones has legit, top 4 running back potential from here on out in fantasy. Denver Broncos heading to New York, really New Jersey, to take on the Giants. I couldn't decide whether or not it's a sit or a worry start, but I'm going to just say I'm really worried about Kenny Golladay. Let me just say that. He's missed so much time this offseason due to a hammy injury, which is just nagging. Who also knows where he and Daniel Jones stand in terms of like being on the same page, knowing where to be, knowing what the offense is. Facing a pretty good Broncos secondary, who just added Patrick Surtain too, who decided that he was more important than Justin Fields, which is A+ work, John Elway. I have Gallaudet as my wide receiver 41 this week. Like, I was surprised at how low I kept bumping him down, just because I just have no idea. Like, he is a wide receiver 1. He can be that. He showed that in Detroit, but he's been struggling with injuries. You have to then trust this Giants like passing game and Jason Garrett to call a good passing game. And all of those things I'm not willing to do or commit to in week 1. So I am probably going to pass on Kenny Golladay this week.
His questionable status going into the week is a little bit concerning. If you have a history with Kenny Golladay, you know that like questionable is basically just comes with the territory for him. But when he plays, like, you kind of don't want to miss him playing. Like in the 4 full games that he played last year, he scored 17 points, 16 points, 14.5 points, 17 points. Like, he was good when he was on the field, but at the same time, he's going into a new system, new offense, new quarterback who is probably worse than Matthew Stafford.
Probably. Don't do my boy Matthew Stafford dirty like that.
I said probably because I immediately started to think of like the David Blouse and like the backups that started playing for Detroit. I guess Kenny Golladay can be a wait and see type of situation. He could be a good flex though. If the reports on Sunday are like, hey, Kenny Golladay, he's on the field, he's good to go, he feels good, then I would play him probably.
Yeah, you make a good point where it's like Kenny Golladay, when he's on the field, and that's like I said, he is a clear wide receiver 1. He's built like it. He performs like it. There's no questions there. It's just like, God, it has just been nothing but bad news coming out of Giants camp. And there's been no one-handed catches in the back of the end zone to tell me that he's ready to go, Jordan. That's the whole point of those highlights is I need to see those in order to confirm that that they're worth playing in fantasy. If I don't see a one-handed catch in the back of the end zone, how do I know that they've actually been working out this offseason?
Giant social media team just dropping the ball.
Just dropping the ball. Who do you got? I'm going to go with Broncos. I'm going to trust Teddy Bridgewater to come in and game manage this to victory.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you have the right like nomenclature too. Is just game manage it. Like that's what he's going to be, the game manager, and it's gonna be the decider here.
That's gonna do the trick. All right, moving on. Miami Dolphins heading to New England to take on the Patriots and their new starting quarterback, Mac Jones. Jordan, what do you got?
This one felt pretty obvious. I think the only one that I'm truly confident about starting in this game is Damian Harris. I think the Pats wide receivers, the tight ends, it's kind of all TBD right now. They did decide on Mac Jones, who, again, another, we shall see on him to make sure he's a good, viable fantasy starter. I think he will be I think he can be just a pretty decent plug and play guy like Phillip Rivers.
He's a good streaming option.
Yeah, he's not exciting, but he's also probably not going to frick up too bad for you because he's got the good coaching staff and the infrastructure. Miami, another tough call. Who's to say who's going to get the most attention from Tua, which running back, even though they say Myles Gaskin's going to be the workhorse, but New England secondary and defense overall is just going to be much better. So I'm going with Damian Harris. I think he's a really talented athlete, and he's going to be running behind a really decent offensive line and taking pressure off of Mac Jones, who will be in his first game. Luckily, he'll be in Foxborough, so that should be a little bit more comfortable for him. But I love the running back with the first-year rookie, as long as that running back position, unlike the Jets, is pretty well determined. And I think by them shipping out Sony Michel, they know that Harris is going to be.
They shipped out Sony Michel. Oh my God. Now I'm forgetting his name. Ramondre Stevenson is dealing. He dislocated his thumb in practice. James White, we know, is locked into the passing work. And with no Cam Newton there to be the goal line back, Damian Harris's ceiling is sky high. I mean, he's going to see a lot of work running the ball between the 20s and also in the red zone, because no longer Mac Jones is not a threat to run with the football in the slightest. So I love the Damian Harris call. I love Damian Harris this whole season. I am super high on him because of all the things we said together. Also, don't go out here and saying just because you were foolish enough to drop him in our dynasty league, and I plucked Jacoby Myers from the waiver wire and have kept him on my bench up until this point. Don't speak about Jacoby Myers like TBD. Jacoby Myers, I think I have him as a top 40 wide receiver this year or this week.
Hey, you know what? I like Myers this year, but I'm also I don't know who's going to be the benefactor in that offense by having Mac Jones. Is it because Cam Newton and Myers had a pretty good rapport, I think. And the Pats brought in these two tight ends, and they've got the running situation kind of figured out now for the most part. So I feel like that part of the offense will be a little bit more clean. They brought in Nelson Aguilar, Aguilar or Kendrick?
Yeah, no, they brought in Aguilar. They also brought in Kendrick Bourne. They brought in Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. They built a whole new offense.
Yeah, so that's another one where I'm just I'm waiting to see what happens. I think Jacoby Myers can be a good player, but it's he might end up being a victim of his circumstance in New England. That would again,
terrible. I'm picking the Patriots. Shaka. Who are you picking? Do it. I dare you. I dare you.
All right. Fine. I'm gonna go Miami. I'll go the Dolphins because they're New England South. So why not?
Why not? Why not? Who says no? All right, Sunday night game, which we decided was stupid. Chicago Bears heading to LA to take on the Rams. Again, I feel like you said it, Jordan. We're being negative, but I can't help it. I'm a little worried. I'm worried to start Allen Robinson. Obviously, I will never, ever in my life tell you to set Allen Robinson any given week, because that man has proven that no matter how shitty his circumstances, he still puts up numbers. But week one facing Jalen Ramsey and the Rams defense that gave only 5 touchdowns to wide receivers last year isn't exactly how I want to start the season, especially with Andy Dalton being the one under center and not Justin Fields. So I have plenty of shares of Allen Robinson. I am not going to be benching him, but I have him as my wide receiver 18 this week, and which is certainly the lowest I'll probably have him ever ranked this year. So I'm definitely worried. I'm definitely skeptical. Would not recommend playing him in DFS.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey is probably the best cornerback in football, and like coming off a pretty insane year where I think the best player against him was like Devontae Adams, where he's like had like 50 yards and a touchdown, which is like fine, but it's also like not Devontae Adams numbers. And so
Devontae Adams, who scored whatever 300 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, so I think not to hedge, but I think the safest thing would be to say, don't be surprised if Allen Robinson gets to like 14 points for fantasy, and that's it. Like, don't expect him to blow up and get you 20 points like a number one wide receiver should. I don't think that happens against Jalen Ramsey, no matter who it is. So yeah,
totally agree. I'm picking the Rams to win. They're going to bless SoFi. They're going to crack the champagne on it. And Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are going to hold hands as they skip into the middle of the field, celebrating their first victory.
New QBs for these teams, in the race against.
And you're going with Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton versus Matthew Stafford. You know what? I'm going to go Stafford. Who has the better career record, Andy Dalton or Matthew Stafford? I'd like to.
That's a good question. Can we look that up quickly? Let me see what Pro Football Reference. All right.
QB wins record are not a stat, but I would like to know.
Andy Dalton is 74, 66 and 2, and Matthew
positive.
That's pretty good actually for Andy. Well, Andy Dalton had some good years in.
What's that percentage though? Because Stafford probably played more games.
You want me to do math in my head? Are you kidding me right now, Jordan?
I'll do the math. What?
Okay. Oh, Stafford. Well, that's because Stafford went 0-16. Stafford 74, 90 and 1.
Oh, so Andy Dalton.
Better winning percentage than Matt Stafford. Wow.
I'm rethinking it now.
Please pick the Bears. Please pick.
No, I'm going to pick the Rams.
Yes, you should. As well, you should. All right, last game in Week 1 schedule. Monday night, Baltimore Ravens heading to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Is this also the christening of the Vegas stadium? I guess they had it last year, but just no fans in it.
Yeah. They had.
Yeah.
No
so
fans.
that's why this is getting the Monday night treatment. What do you got for this game?
It looks like we each picked a sleeper start here
because no one trusts the Ravens passing attack.
I also don't trust the Raiders passing attack either. So it's like,
gotta go with someone.
I went with Marquis Brown because I liked what he did last year towards the end of the season. I'm trying to give some people hope. Even though if you're like me, you traded all of your Hollywood Brown stock in the middle of last season. But he ended last season on a bit of a tear. He had 6 straight weeks with double-digit fantasy games in PPR. So he had like 18.5 points, 15, 13, 15.8, 12.5, and 21, which is pretty damn good considering he was getting you absolute goose eggs before
Hot
that.
Garbage.
So, yeah, if he wasn't finding the end zone, he wasn't finding a good spot on your roster. And with the Ravens running back room looking weaker, injuries to Rashad Bateman and Miles Boykin, who's kind of fallen down the depth chart anyway, but it's very thin on offense for the Ravens overall. And I think that it's going to rest on Gus Edwards, Mark Andrews, Sammy Watkins, and Hollywood Brown. I wouldn't be surprised if Lamar Jackson just took this game into his own hands, though, and just like rushed for 125 yards and did not,
especially against a Raiders defense that's just going to be hot garbage. Like this Raiders defense has no one on it that like makes you nervous about anything. So I think you're totally right that Lamar is just going to be like, we will not lose this game, and we'll throw for 100 yards and rush for 200.
Yeah, the Raiders have not been able to figure out their safety position for the past like 5 seasons. I like Andrews the most out of that bunch if we're picking a pass catcher, but I think Marquis has a pretty good rapport with Lamar Jackson. And I was wondering what because I remember Marquis Brown's rookie year in week 1 against the Dolphins. I don't know why I remember this game.
Yeah.
But I remember watching him in that game and I was like, oh, like the Ravens did it again. They got another gem in the draft, and he was a smaller wide receiver, but nobody else saw it but the Ravens, and they knew what to do with him. And he topped 100 yards in that game. And the rest of the season, kind of poop, kind of injured. Last week, guess what? He topped 100, or last season, he topped 100 yards again in week 1. And you know what happened after that? He got
injured.
He had some lingering issues with injuries, and he turned into poop again. So Marquis Brown has 2 career 100-yard games, and both of them come in week 1. If you're going to start him in any fantasy league in any week, it's got to be in week 1. So,
I love how that's your logic for Marquis Brown, and it's my exact logic for Sammy Watkins, because Sammy Watkins also loves week 1. In the last 2 years, he's gone for over 80 yards in each and a touchdown at least, including, what was it, 2019, where he was on the Chiefs against the Jaguars and went for like 180 yards and 3 touchdowns, and everyone was like, oh my God, Sammy Watkins and Patrick Mahomes, duo of destiny. Then he did absolutely nothing. So basically what Jordan and I are telling you is start all of the Ravens pass catchers in week 1 and then trade them all at their absolute peak in value.
The theme of the show is basically start injury prone guys in week 1 and then like get everything you can out of them in week 1, because they're going to hurt you later.
Yes.
They're going to hurt your feelings and you're going to be mad about it. But at least you started them in week 1.
But at least you got that one good performance out of them. That's the spirit. That's how you build your fantasy lineup. All right, final pick. I'm going with the Ravens over Raiders. I feel like that's a pretty easy win for Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm going Baltimore as well. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, then before we go, let's quickly do our DFS wheel of, I had a good name for it. Shit. It was wheel of conditions. No, it wasn't that, but we could call it wheel of conditions. And I was going to sing it to the Game of Thrones theme song. So we're going to pretend that all of that intro was ignored. Ignore it, because we're getting to wheel of conditions. So we will be spinning the wheel to see what conditions we have to draft our DFS lineup. And this is how Jordan and I will win $4 million to fund future podcasts. So let's give it an old spin. And we can only build a DFS team with players who are 30 years or older. That is our wheel of condition.
So we're going like the Arizona Cardinals route.
So we are drafting
a bunch of old dudes.
Exactly. We are drafting a bunch of old dudes, and we are also going to the Houston Texans strategy of, we can only play old guys. So let me go to, I'm doing some technical stuff behind the scenes. We're going to full screen this. All right, let's draft our team. This is some high value stuff. Let's go for the $4 million prize. Obviously, thank you. Oh, we only win $1 million if we're in. Oh, what is this? Oh, this is not what I want. I don't want super flex $1 million stuff. Go back. Return. This is A+ podcasting.
The audio medium.
The audio medium. What happened to my? I don't want single game. I want full roster. All right, we're loading. You would think that they would have had this prepared ahead of time. Okay, I lied. It's 3.5 million, and we can only win 1 million. Enter new lineup.
That's not as many wheels.
Not as many wheels. It really hurts the amount of wheels that we have to offer. Okay, so let's start with quarterback. 30 or older. Aaron Rodgers gets New Orleans for 8,000. Is that a clear and obvious choice?
Or Russell Wilson against the Colts.
Is Russell Wilson over 30 years old?
I feel like he's 31.
And I keep doing this full screen thing, so I can't see. Tell me, give me news. Give me Russell Wilson. When's your birthday? I like Russell Wilson. If he's over 30, I would do Russ against the Colts.
Yeah, Russell Wilson is 32.
Oh, perfect. Then let's do Russell Wilson. 78.
Yeah, I like the rushing upside with Russell Wilson. I think that offense is going to be pretty good.
I think so too. I think it will be pretty good. Running back. Oh my God. Are there any 30-year-old running backs in the NFL right now? How old's Chris Carson? Are we just gonna stack the Seahawks? No,
Chris Carson's 26.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Is
there how old's David Johnson?
Oh, I don't want to even go with David Johnson.
Yes, but we have to.
He's probably not that old.
Oh, he's 29 years old. Melvin Gordon has to be 30.
28.
No, what is this? All right, we're hitting
what about our guy JC James Conner? Oh, he's only 26. Jesus.
Damn it. There is not a single 30-year-old running back. How old's Latavius Murray? He's not even on a team. That would be a tough pill to swallow. Cordarrelle Patterson is a running back. How old's Cordarrelle Patterson?
He's got to be over 30. He's
Cordarrelle Patterson, age. He's 30. All right. Definitely. So we're starting Cordarrelle as our RB1.
No, geez. And we need another running back. Okay.
How old's Philip Lindsay? I feel like he was an undrafted free agent. So he's 27. All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say he can't be that old.
Wayne Gallman. I'm trying to think who's been in the Kerryon Johnson. Matt Breida. Samaje Perine looks like he's 30. Devonta Freeman, but he's not on a team yet. Oh, Le'Veon Bell is on the Ravens practice squad.
I think Carlos Hyde. We got to go upside and go James White, though. Is this PPR?
Oh, super smart. You are right. James White, 100%. I was going to say Carlos Hyde is 30, but you are.
Shoot. James White is 29.
Son of a.
How is he only 29? I feel like he's been in the league for as long as I've been alive. Just kidding. There was some overlap when we were down in Madison for school. So,
okay, so I'm saying Carlos Hyde or Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram has to be 30. I'm not even going to look if Mark Ingram was 30.
Honestly, I don't even know who Carlos Hyde plays for right now. I kind of forgot.
Carlos Hyde plays for the Jaguars. Maybe he gets a goal line touch instead of James Robinson against the bad Houston. Oh, I'm saying Carlos Hyde.
Yeah, I would go Carlos Hyde because Carlos Hyde is going to get an annoying 90 yards somehow because they won't give the ball to James Robinson, and James Robinson managers are going to be super ticked off about it.
Man, we are going to look so smart when this wins us the $1 million. 30-year-old wide receivers. How old's Keenan Allen? 29.
Keenan Allen, 29.
God damn it. DeAndre Hopkins?
Hop is
29. Adam Thielen or Julio Jones.
Thielen is over 30. He's definitely over 30.
Julio's also got to be over 30, right?
Julio's 33. Yeah, Thielen's 31.
Julio's 32.
Yeah, Julio's 32.
All right, should we just stack those guys?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go Thielen. We're gonna go. Julio.
Wait, how old is Tyler Lockett? We might want that. That stack.
Yes, an actual stack.
Oh, he's only 28.
Damn it! This is one of these moments where it's an exercise where you realize how young
we do need a flex though, so I'm keeping an eye out.
Okay, Jarvis Landry. How old is Jarvis?
Oh, Jarvis is shockingly young, even though
is he really?
He has an old man game.
Yeah, he does. He's 28.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is also, I think, shockingly young.
I think he's in the same draft class as Odell and Jarvis.
Oh my goodness. Is he really? That's wild.
I think so.
Marvin Jones. Come on, Marvin Jones. You're old.
Yeah, he's got to be over 30.
Marvin Jones is 31 years old. Welcome to the squad. I actually love Marvin Jones. I already mentioned him, but going for 5,800 against Houston. Yes, please. I mean, he is their Jaguars' #1 red zone target. So that seems like a clear-cut start for me. I assume we don't want to go tight end as our flex. So let's do another wide receiver as our flex. Should we do the unvaccinated Cole Beasley?
No, I don't want to pick him out of spite.
Tyrell Williams. How old is Tyrell Williams?
Oh, Tyrell Williams. I feel like he's 29.
Everyone's freaking 29. Tyrell, goddamn,
he is 29.
Right. He is 29. AJ Green?
AJ Green's over 30.
Oh, 100%.
Or Randall Cobb.
Do we do AJ Green or Randall Cobb?
Wait, no. Randall Cobb might only be 29 too.
No, he's not.
Hang on. No, he's 31. Okay.
Thank God.
I'm good with AJ Green or Randall Cobb. I think Aaron Jones or Aaron Rodgers might be tossing the ball.
I kind of think that like after he did his whole little holdout and then like pushed the Packers to trade for Randall Cobb, like, don't you think he's going to force feed Randall Cobb to just show that he still has it?
I think he's going to force feed Randall Cobb out of spite. Like, like I brought this guy here, so I'm going to show you guys why I wanted him here.
Why I wanted him here. Okay.
Travis Kelce.
Is Travis Kelce over 30?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, hell yes. Well, he's going to carry this team.
our best player, finally.
Our best player. Hey, Russell Wilson, Travis
Wilson.
Kelce. Not bad. Not bad.
All right. The rest of the team. All right. Our over 30 defense. Do we have to pick the Texans?
We have to pick the Texans. You are 100% correct. Or the Cardinals. I can also accept the Cardinals.
I wish there was like a average age of the defense.
Yeah. We could just do average NFL age, average team age, average NFL team age. But I just typed gibberish and we're going to see what it comes up with.
This might not go so well. I have an article up.
Who do they say is the youngest?
None of them are over 30. So the oldest team by age is actually the Bears.
Yeah, I have that too.
27 average age. I think that's overall oldest roster. I'm okay with going with the Bears defense.
Yeah, let's do the Bears defense. Going up against the what is it? Who are they playing? We just mentioned
Rams.
The Rams.
That might be. It's a little scary, but Khalil Mack might get us a sack.
That's true.
Too.
That's true. Like, yeah, I'll take that. Where is the Bears defense? Oh, Bears defense is a night game, so we can't use it.
Oh, good. All right. The next oldest is
the Texans.
Can we go the Bucks because they're the third oldest?
Yeah, let's do the Bucks. We're gonna do the Bucks. We have to break in favor of us some way somehow. Oh, we can't. We can't do the Bucks because it's Thursday night. the fantasy gods only want us to use the Houston Texans defense.
I was about to thank Tom Brady for tilting the scale. Look, the Cardinals have the same average age though.
Okay,
so I'll go Cardinals.
All right, let's do Cardinals. Let's do the Cardinals defense. Cardinals defense with JJ Watt and a healthy Chandler Jones. Their secondary is just absolute trash though, with Malcolm Butler doing a surprise retirement. Hope all is well, Malcolm. All right, there's our lineup: Russell Wilson, Cordarrelle Patterson, Carlos Hyde, Adam Thielen, Julio Jones, Marvin Jones, Travis Kelce, Randall Cobb, Arizona Cardinals. Honestly, it's the running back that kills us.
Yeah, it's because they all bottom up by like 29. So
because they don't exist after the age of 28. Enter lineup. And there we go. That is our that's our week one DFS lineup. DFS wheel of contractions. No, what was it? Wheel of conflicts. I sung a whole damn song. Wheel of constraints. Wheel of constraints.
So, a little intel on some surprising like NFL ages. Like I feel like I didn't know some of them, and some of them I was like pleasantly shocked by how old they were. And I am currently 30, so it's making me feel super aged out right now.
Very much. We would not be, if we were running backs, we would be out of the NFL. We'd have been comfortably out of the NFL by now.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. No. So that's
not Frank Gore in it. Not at all.
No, God, no. We are far from Frank Gore's of the world. All right. Well, there you go. That's all we got for you this week. So make sure to subscribe to the Nerdball Fantasy Football Show podcast, wherever you get your podcasts on your podcast platform of choice. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at NerdballFF. You can follow myself at Pete M. Rogers and follow Jordan at Jordan_Smith27. And of course, make sure you check out all the amazing content we're putting out over on the site at nerdballff.com. We have starts and sits going up. We have rankings. We're going to have DFS plays, everything you need to have a successful week one. We've got you covered. Until next week, my fellow nerds,